Welcome to the second panel in our conference of the NIA, participating RIXC conference, Splintered Realities. Today's panel now we're starting with new ECOSOPHIES. And our first panelist is Ricardo Dafa. He's joining us from Toronto. So good morning, I think. Thanks for being here.
Yes, good morning.
Ricardo is composer and artist specialized in transdisciplinary actions with science and emerging technology. He's teaching art and music in the Concordia University of Canada. And he's also director of the Electric Arts Research Center in Argentina, Se Arte Untreff, if I pronounce it right. And you're talking about balance and unbalance, ecology, art, science, and citizenship. So I'm very curious what it's about, and speech is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Eva. Can you hear me well? Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yes, in fact, I'm in Montreal, not Toronto, but more or less close. Okay, thank you. So yes, the idea is to talk about Balance and Balance is a project I started many years ago, and I'm going fast through a number of other projects until I will reach the Balance and Balance specific thing. So there has been many actions around what we call now land art or ecological art. This is not something that started like a year ago or 10 years ago, 20 years ago. This is just an example of when Nicolás García Uriburu was coloring the Grand Canale in Venice, Venezia. So if we see some of these images, this is when in 1968 he was throwing like a special kind of coloring in Venice. At that time, he was, of course, he was detained by the police, etc., for some hours until they finally found that it was not a problem. And now this became like a, what we call ecological art, land art, etc., And many other artists have been doing this similar thing, like in this case, Green River, but this is 30 years later. And different artists are using different approaches to bring attention to this kind of situation. Like this is a performance bringing attention about VP in the Tate Museum in London. And like this, many different approaches are being taken. Like this is, for example, Land Art Generator Initiative that are based in the US, but they have been doing this competition and receiving projects from all over the world where they are crossing like art, technology, design, and specific useful result for the project they are receiving. Like, for example, harvesting energy, solar energy, wind energy, cleaning water, etc., So there are many different approaches. These kind of projects for RIXC, for example, have been an inspiring thing for me. These kind of ideas of already a good number of years ago, bringing together different places and trying to have a picture of what's happening in a certain region about different topics. And for you, maybe because many of you are in Riga or in the area, you know well this project, but this is not a project that is, I think, has been well known in other places. So, and the same like this. I mean, this project was done in 2012. And yes, slowly, these kind of actions are becoming more and more known and like current, but not necessarily when RIXC were doing this kind of thing years ago. A different approach is sometimes like focusing on specific areas, like trying to bring attention, like in Airocen, Pacha, by Tomás Saraceno from Argentina, and trying to show that it is possible to do things in a different way. In this case, just a human flight only based on 100% solar heat power. So this is not the usual way, and it is not expected that this will be the current way to travel, but it's like showing a counterpoint with modern capitalism. And then we see many different ways, not only this picture that is well known, but I mean, The Guardian was publishing like in 2016, 12 ways that art can encourage climate action. And we have some examples here. And in the same way, there are many other actions, like also The Guardian 1 year before was publishing 15 ways to powerfully communicate climate change solutions, etc., etc. Maybe depending on the part of the world where you live, maybe the Museo de Amanhã is not that well known in many places, the Museum of Tomorrow, where it is an interesting museum in the heart of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, because in this museum, it's very impressive, as you can see down in the left side of the screen. It's a very impressive museum, and then in the inside, it's talking basically, is approaching the building of the future. I mean, so this is taken from a publication from the museum, but it's talking about the expanding the knowledge, the extreme climate change, the changing the biodiversity, what's happening with population. So in the same publication of the Museum of Tomorrow, they talk, this is my translation, the original is in Portuguese. So it says, you can't wait the future, we must act now. And they are proposing, they are showing, highlighting certain things, like for example, the power of consumers. And this together with very strong visual actions to, like for example, for a coexistence without borders, or the situation, especially for example, this picture was taken in Brazil, but it's happening in many other countries. But in Brazil, you find what is called favelas. So how in these last few years, the situation have been becoming more and more difficult. Each day, I would say almost the shortage of drinkable water is a problem. On the other extreme, we have things like what's happening with the internet that is becoming, and it will be responsible for probably, if the trends is like today, 14% of the world carbon emission by 2040. So this branch magazine is trying to focus on a sustainable internet for all. Many of these actions are crossing art and science. We can see in Stephen Wilson differences between art and science, and also similarities that you could come back after and explore this publication. And coming out from that, I would say that the discussions about if citizen science, yes or not, open science, yes or not, open data, yes or not. I mean, there are different approaches. Probably most of the people coming to this conference are supporting these ideas, but this is not always the case, depending who you talk in the academia, etc., etc. Or in this case, another project, in this case, is do it with others. So the different approaches are very interesting, but still, it is like a funnel where we want to keep the economy like it is or growing. We want to take care of the environment, and we need to produce as much energy as today or even more each day. So what will be, how we can put all these balls through the same little hole? So the point is about what kind of future do we want? Who decides the future? And what are we doing about that future? So what's the role maybe of the arts in all this? So there is a project called Balance and Balance, and the spin-off Art, Climate, and Eco. But let me talk briefly about Balance and Balance first. The Balance and Balance is trying to contribute from how the arts could be playing some role in all this. So first of all, Balance and Balance was organizing a first conference in 2010 in Argentina. It was called in Spanish Equilibrio Desequilibrio. And immediately after, the name was changed to Balance and Balance in English. It's the name that is known today. And it's trying to cross basically is to bring art as a catalyzer in the intersections between nature, science, technology, and society. The second conference was done in Montreal, where I'm talking now, at Concordia University and some other places. And the third one in 2013 was done with support from UNESCO, the Red Cross Climate Center, Leonardo, the MIT published journal, etc., etc. This was done in an environment protected by UNESCO in one of the designated biosphere. And the idea is always to bring together scientists, technology experts, artists, opinions, leaders, philosophers, anthropologists, politicians, lawyers, because the problem, as we know, I mean, cannot be solved. The problem like climate change, for example, cannot be solved by just one kind of specialist. The idea is to bring together many people working from different fields, and in this one that I was showing in 2015, Balance and Balance was done at Arizona State University in the US, and the years after, in 2016, we did it in Manizales in Colombia. So all these actions are trying to bring together ideas from people from really different concepts, from very different approaches to how to solve local, regional, and global problems related to climate change and its consequences. So, for example, here, the idea of awareness plus reflection, but not only that, not only the awareness taken to reflection, but ending in some kind of eco-actions. So after this one in Colombia, where very different people were coming, from Roger Malina, the executive director of the Leonardo Journal, astrophysicist, to David Rothenberg. I mean, he's a philosopher, he's a musician, Andrew Kruszkiewicz, one working for the Red Cross Climate Center, and Luis Aran, that is a conductor in Paraguay, but he's leading the H2O initiative and Sounds of the Earth in Paraguay, and through music is changing a lot of things related to how we deal with this kind of problems, specifically with climate change and environmental issues. So the idea is to create some kind of network where we can cross enough information, ideas, and projects to make a real change. Between all these actions, we started with the Red Cross Climate Center, a competition focusing on art and climate, and we were basically applying ideas and concepts from the Climate Center into sound art miniature composition. Because part of the idea is that the Red Cross Climate Center, as well as other institutions, could use some of these pieces in their actions to reach people. What kind of people? What people? All kind of people. They are using art and serious games today to approach. It could be peasants, it could be people in the city, it could be a prime minister or a cabinet. So they reach different kind of people. So we organize different contests called Art and Climate, trying to support their ideas. The same time, we were publishing in Leonardo special sections devoted to balance and balance, like many papers have been publishing during the past 10 years. And we did another balance and balance in the UK, and also applying different approaches like a data play. We were working in this place, the Eden project. We were doing a special presentation for the 50 years of Leonardo. And after that, we did another project in the Netherlands, also a full balance and balance conference, and trying always with different kind of approaches. I'm not going to talk much about the ECO because we don't have enough time, but it's an online database where we're trying to bring together all this information and make the people and projects to communicate, because many times we simply don't know and don't have access to information about these kind of projects. Because of the pandemic, we were doing different approaches, and in 2001, we did an action bringing together different people, and we were joining effort with other conferences. And we were doing this with during Ars Electronica and other festival and conferences too, in different places. Online, so we were reaching a lot of different people. So let me finish the presentation bringing these words from Neil Carter, that in 2007 wrote, there is a consensus over the need for active ecological citizenship because of the recognition that the transition to a sustainable society requires more than institutional restructuring. It also needs a transformation in the beliefs, attitudes, and behavior of individuals. So these are the last actions. This was done in a few months ago during this year, bringing together a lot of people. We are still doing a lot of actions online and a few things with local presence. And as you can see, Rasa was also invited a few months ago. So she was participating of one of the actions of Balance and Balance 2 or 3 months ago. Thank you so much for the time. And if there is any question, just let me know. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ricardo, for showing us the history of the different projects of Balance Unbalance. And yeah, I was wondering about the question art as catalyzer, and if we can do with this project really make society more aware that art is very important to find solutions.
I think that one of the interesting things is that through Balance and Balance, we have been bringing together people that otherwise they won't meet because simply they won't intersect, never. Mm-hmm. So I was bringing together, for example, I was inviting people, or for different reasons, in different situations, people that, for example, an astrophysicist with a huge network capable of reaching funding, projects, experts all over the world, with people from the Red Cross Climate Center. They don't intersect, but the Red Cross Climate Center is working more and more and more with art. I mean, the difference is that the Red Cross Climate Center works usually with urgencies. The art deals with other things. Timing is totally different. What if we can cross both worlds? Well, basically today, the Red Cross Climate Center is dealing with emergencies all over the world, but at the same time, they are trying to approach people through serious games and through art, because just scaring people, showing how bad things are in terms of climate situation and the future that we could have is not working. So they started to, I mean, you can scare a lot of people and then most of the people are going to run away from that responsibility. So the way it has been shown as more effective is trying to approach these people and reach the people, the emotion of the people in a very different way. The more I talk to scientists, the more they tell me, oh, okay, yes, but climate change is an emotional problem. So I think that those kind of links is what the vision of the artist, what the artist can provide, what the artist can bring as a different perspective, a different idea, contribution, works of art, etc. But it's not only about making aware other people of the situation, it's much more than that. I think it's the way of bringing different perspectives about the situation and with different perspective, creating something new that works.
Yeah. So a question from the audience.
What is the future of balance and balance?
Did you hear it, Ricardo? What's the future of balance and balance?
That sounded like Nina.
Yeah, I did hear this.
Ah, yes? Okay. Hi, Nina. Well, Nina has been
a... We have mixed it up, Montreal and Toronto.
Okay. So, hi. So Nina has been a big supporter of Balance and Balance. She participated in many, many editions. And I think that we need to change because, I mean, we have been doing big conferences in the past, and we are trying to do many more things online. And we expect to keep doing things like, for example, now recently, we started a chair in a university, and the chair is on art and climate. And the idea is that this will help as a platform to bring people together and to have a little bit more of support, I hope, in the future from an institution, so we can run these actions with a little bit more of permanence, let's call it that way, because it has been like each Balance and Balance has been almost an individual effort for each country, for each institution, and hasn't been easy. I'm not expecting that it's going to be much easier now, but maybe a little bit of perspective over time. Let's see, we'll see in the future. I cannot hear you.
The next speaker is missing, so we have a bit more time. Somehow.
Okay. I was running fast.
No, because
to reach my 15 minutes limit. I mean, well, I can comment something else. I mean, the way we were doing it this year was like, first we were doing with one university in Colombia, an online project where RASA was participating, where 8 sessions where we were bringing together in some sessions, for example, an specialist in the Antarctica, or Nina was organizing one of the sessions with people from New Zealand, and she was participating in another session. So it could be really different profiles on each session, and this was bringing now together a chair where students are coming to learn about these things, because many people simply, they have no idea what's going on. I mean, even today, it is like scaring the lack of knowledge some people, especially young people, are having about these things. Because I hear the other day one student saying, the problem is that talking about climate change is too boring. Yes, why is too boring? Because we are bombarded all the time about the apocalypse. If it's not climate change, it's going to be something else. So simply, more people, they don't want to know about these kind of things because it looks like it's the end of the world. So nobody wants to know more about this. So.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Ricardo, for your interesting lecture, and hope to see you soon at the Balance and Unbalance.
Thank you.
So now Caroline here. Caroline?
Yes, hello. I have a question, and thank you very much for your interesting presentation and also your important work, of course. I was wondering a little bit about more kind of the outcome and impact from these various conferences that you have arranged, apart from creating networks, if there has been other networks or kind of follow-ups, and something about the impact and outcome would be really interesting to hear something more about.
There are different kind of impact. I think that one of the, in fact, when we were organizing the second conference in 2011, it was very successful in some way, but at the end I said, well, but it's okay, but this is not about doing more conferences. So I thought, if this is not going to bring any result, we will stop here. And then one of the first very concrete results started to happen. That was the interest of the Red Cross Climate Center in doing things with us. And this was interesting because, I mean, they have to deal with the specific goals. So if they think that through art, and we as artists can help to bring new pieces, for example, they were having a lot of new works that they can use in their workshops and their actions in different ways. So we can, from providing content, to create some kind of links that are bringing some specific results. For example, when I was showing the picture of Luis Saran is a conductor in Asunción, but the network he has been creating in Paraguay around water and climate change is very important, and it's changing a lot in that society in Paraguay. But his model is not very well known in other countries. So it is known in some countries, but not in many. So the idea of connecting with other people that could be replicating or taking that as an inspiration to bring it to other places are really important. Or the time when we were going, for example, to see the Eden project in the UK, when we were doing these actions there, it is important to understand how things are done in different places, because simply sometimes we have no idea how some people are dealing with this problem. So the outcomes are taking time, but are happening. So it's not only about publications or about doing the conferences, but we can see that, for example, 10 years after a certain conference, people that were participating are telling us, okay, because of the balance and balance, we started to do this or that project, and that project is having a concrete result in an area or a region. So it's not that we follow the projects as a consequence of balance and balance, but we know that this is provoking effects in a lot of places. So basically, those are a couple of examples. I hope that was answering a little bit.
Yeah. So thank you, Ricardo. And
Thank you.
There is a night is not showing up. So pleased to welcome Livia Nolasco-Rojas. And she's a curator and contemporary media art institution internationally. She did exhibitions in China, Germany, Hungary, Latvia since 2006 and more other countries. Yeah, and she's also founding member of NAIA Karlsruhe. And I'm looking forward to your project Beyond Matter, an international collaborative practice-based research project that takes cultural heritage and culture in development to the verge of virtual reality. Hope you're doing fine in Karlsruhe, and yeah, looking forward to your lecture, Livia.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and also thanks for the invitation. So let me share my screen and put this on full screen. So yeah, in the next 20 minutes, right? 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about, as Eva mentioned, the Beyond Matter project, which is an international collaboration of various institutions. Here you can see the project partners. It's led by the mentioned ZKM, Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe, where I'm currently situated in, even though you don't see it in the background, but you see the online platform of the project in the background, which I will talk about in a bit. And another important collaborator is the Centre Pompidou in Paris, and the Tallinn Art Hall, the Tirana Art Lab, the Ludwig Museum, Budapest, and the Aalto University in Espoo. So it's a landscape of contemporary art institutions and university who is supporting us mainly in the evaluation of the project. There are some accompanying partners, but maybe I will not go that deep into detail. Just to maybe mention EPFL pavilions from Lausanne, with whom we collaborated on one certain event, and the GIM, Gesellschaft für innovative Marktforschung, the innovative market research company with whom we are also working on the evaluation of the project. And well, here is the project architecture, which looks a little bit like an algorithm that is a circular algorithm which doesn't lead anywhere, but it's just a visual metaphor. So the project architecture does lead somewhere actually, or at least the experiences and the outputs and all what we learn throughout the project. And as you can see, the ZKM Karlsruhe is more or less central in this architecture, and all the other partners are contributing to certain experiments, certain outputs of the project. And maybe most importantly, the Beyond Matter project tries to synthesize all its and publish all its outputs on a so-called view platform or on an online platform that enables us to publish different three-dimensional virtual exhibitions that were created throughout the course of the project. In the beginning, when we started, it was late 2020, 2019. And just a few months after the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic started. And this is why we realized that before we start to create our own outputs, our own content, we would need a so-called crisis special, which included the different ideas of partners how to overcome this crisis, the curfews, the closures at museums and cultural institutions, and so on and so forth. So interestingly, the entire project was laid out already in 2018 together with the partners to create online content and to enhance physical institutions, museums that mostly work in the physical realm onto online spheres. And this tenet of the project, which seemed to be quite marginal in the beginning, became quite central to many of the art institutions as the pandemic hit. And in that sense, which caused actually an interesting shift, because we thought that so in the beginning, we thought that our project is quite marginal, but then it turned out to be quite important and quite central as well to the partner institutions. But it also threw us back a little bit in our process, because we didn't expect this, we didn't count with this, and first of all the partners had to learn how to cope with online collaboration and bringing their content and mediation projects online. But then, as we overcame the first most complicated part, which felt a little bit cursed period, to be honest, we managed to create an exhibition at the Ludwig Museum Budapest, which was called Spatial Affairs. And it was sort of a ground research in the Beyond Matter process, because with spatial affairs we could investigate the notion of space before and after computation arrived to the realm of the arts, and we could figure out, or at least try to figure out in what way and how the computation has impacted the notion of space, and how actually computer-generated spaces work in terms of curating and mediating art. And the way we did it was an exhibition which thematically engaged with the subject, physical exhibition at the Ludwig Museum. And this physical exhibition had a digital twin. It still has a digital twin that can be visited on the View platform. Plus, it was, these are some shots from the exhibition, Plus, it still has an online extension, the so-called spatial affairs wording, which is open access game engine based environment. And as you can see, the setup, the scenography of this online exhibition space has very little to do with a white cube, with the museum white cube, and it rather includes different digital objects, different bodies, and also different avatars. So the artworks, which are all born digital in this context, are represented by little avatars, and they are floating around in the space. The visitors, who are also represented by avatars, have to actively go after them and catch them to be able to visit the exhibition. And also, in addition to a new digital format, we created a guided tour extension tool for such an online multi-user environment, also based on Babylon JS. And on this picture, you can see the guide avatar, and on the picture below, you can see a screen which can be used in case of workshops where the guides are showing videos or showing different, sharing different audio-visual material by the participants. Furthermore, this project also triggered a new approach to an exhibition catalog. So it looks like a very simple and normal exhibition catalog, but it is extended with an augmented reality app where chosen artworks or the digital interpretations of these chosen artworks can be seen via an augmented reality app. And also this investigation triggered the need of a professional conversation on the subject, which we called Hybrid Museum Experience Symposium, since we thought that that this is something that is emerging from such a curatorial approach, a hybrid museum experience. And we felt the need to discuss it with experts practically from all over the world, since it was a completely online conference in early 2021. As you can see, we were situated in a green screen and were connected with everyone online. The proceedings of the symposium are available, and also the video documentation of it, if you are interested to have a look at it later. And there's another line in the Beyond Matter project, which is basically another approach in bringing exhibitions, physical exhibitions, into the digital, or rather into the virtual realm. And in this path, we are investigating through 2 case studies the way how to translate, or how to model rather, past exhibitions in a digital way. The chosen exhibitions are Iconoclash, that took place at the ZKM, the Center for Art and Media, in 2002, and Les Immaterial, that took place in 1985 in Paris. And here you can already see the 2 screenshots of the model of Iconoclash, which was a result of an experiential development process and research. This is an additional model of that. And the research was based on interviews with the curators. Fortunately, in case of Iconoclash, we had the chance to talk to most of the curators and some of the scientific advisors who participated in conceiving and creating the show. And also, most importantly, with the architect of the exhibition. And from these interviews, we could put together a concept on which this model is based. As you can see, the environment, the exhibition environment is pretty different from the physical exhibition space of the ZKM. The actual architecture, the interiors of the ZKM vanished, and we only kept the temporary architecture that was planned by Manfred Wolf Plottek at the time, and added the 3D models of the artworks that are constantly being reshuffled around us as we are visiting the exhibition, because it's a personalized view of the exhibition that is ever changing, and it's sort of an algorithmic scenography that is always adapting to the visitor and the evolving profile of the visitor. What you can see here, what is based on keywords. In case of Les Immateriaux, the model is slightly different, or rather completely different, because that curatorial concept, the curatorial concept of Lyotard and Thierry Chaput, required a completely different approach. So it's rather an extended archive, which is based on a ghosty image of that particular part of the Centre Pompidou where the exhibition took place, and wide variety of additional information of practically an entire archive on different layers is added to this walkable model of the exhibition. The creation of the show was also based on making interviews, and Andreas Bröckmann played a very important role, still plays a very important role in creating this archive and also researching the original archive at the Centre Pompidou in collaboration with the curators such as Philippe Bettinelli. Furthermore, we realized I shall come to an end. So that's maybe a last point I will mention, which is how to bring the digital back to the physical. And this is an example what we developed for that, an installation which we call the Immaterial Display, which enables the visitors to control and to step in these virtual environment in an institutional surrounding. Here it's the Oodi Library, what you can see in Helsinki. And there are further exhibitions where this immaterial display and also further materials on the mentioned past exhibitions will be on view. Some of them are already in the past in Helsinki, in Albania, and in Tirana. In Tallinn, sorry, but the next one is going to happen very soon. The opening of it is on the 2nd of December at the Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe. So you are welcome to join if you happen to be in Karlsruhe in the next, in December or until the 23rd of April next year. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Livia, for this very interesting lecture. And I'm looking forward to joining your exhibition in Karlsruhe in person, I hope. Are there any questions from the audience concerning to? I have a short question. I was wondering, because you worked with a lot of different institutions, was there a different reception for the questions for Beyond Matter?
Yes, definitely. So each partner is contributing to a different part of the project, and they are interested in different outcomes or different possible ramifications of such digitization processes for their own institution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much, and hope you're seeing soon in Karlsruhe.
Yeah, thanks.
Or maybe later in the breakout session. So now it's going to be Martin Rosso and Juan.
Raise your hand.
Okay, sorry, I didn't. Caroline, just a short question because we're a bit.
Yes, I can ask a really short question. Thank you for introducing this really interesting project. And I just got curious about how the collaboration between the various institutions came about, a little bit about the background, why these institutions got involved in the first stage.
Well, first of all, it was important to include contemporary art institutions and contemporary art institutions that all have an interest in expanding their practices, and they all had an interest in reflecting this condition, what we tend to call virtual. So, but of course, personal connections played a role in it as well.
Okay, thank you. So Juan and Martin, are you ready?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Hello there. Yeah, just a short one before we start. We would like to ask you if you can, wherever you're watching us, to make the room where you are a little bit darker. We're going to present you a virtual reality experience, and the best results for the image and everything will be if the room where you are is as dark as possible, because it's going to be very, very dark in the screen. So while you do that, I will get right into the VR headset and project the screen.
Good. So I'll introduce you Martin Rosso and Juan Felipe
Sewanis.
Okay. From Colombia. Martin is now based in Vienna, works in intersection between art and biology, and has a master in art and science. And Juan Felipe is now working in Germany as a data scientist and is currently finishing his PhD in acoustic communication of bats. And the title is Bat Experience, Pollination Through Sound. And yeah, we'll see what's gonna happen.
One moment, please. This is always the tricky part. Okay.
Great. We hear you.
Great.
The sound is double now.
What's that?
The sound is double. I mean, we are hearing you 2 times.
Okay. How about now? Is
Yes.
it better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then we can start.
Okay. So, welcome. Now, this is this started as my thesis for the art and science, and we decided to do this collaboration with Juan Felipe. And while he's studying his PhD in bioacoustics of bats, we were once talking, and he was explaining to me how is the incredible and very impossible thing to understand how a bat is using ultrasound to understand space for a human. I mean, it's totally something very hard to embody or to understand as a human because of the difference in our senses. So we decided to start with this aim to show and yes, to show people how it would be like to understand space using echolocation. And so this was a long journey. And so in this moment, we are, Juan Felipe is now being a bat, specifically a lesser long-nosed bat. That is a bat that lives in the north of Mexico and is a general pollinator. And so what you can see now is the echolocation that the bat is producing. Later, Stefanis is going to explain it a little bit better. But so now the idea is that you would be the bat if you are playing the experience and fly around freely through this landscape. So now we are looking out the place, we are finding the place out of the cave to find flowers to pollinate, because this project is about pollinating flowers as well, and the relationship in between bats and the plants they pollinate, and how they develop this co-evoluted together, and plants develop specific shapes to reflect better the ultrasound from the bat.
Yeah, and well, since this is a project that tries to put us into the perspective of the bat and how to echolocate, a little note on echolocation. It's a very interesting sense. So we use mainly our visual sense to perceive the world, but bats use echolocation, and this is an active sense. So I have here a controller, and we wanted to mimic this sense because they need to send a sound wave that travels through the space, and the objects bounce back, so they will bounce back as echoes to the bat, and so they can get an image of the world outside. You and I don't have to do any of this to receive information. You're right now looking at the screen and you're receiving the information passively. Bats need to actively send a sound that travels through space, and the echoes bounce back. And this is what we're showing, or one of the things that we're showing in this project. And they can modulate the calls. So, for example, here I'm using the long-range call in green. But if I want more detail, I can switch to the short range. Here we see much more detail. So it's short, but it gets us more detail of the space. And yeah, I hand over to Martin again.
Okay, so maybe you're wondering why is it so colorful? It's not maybe the first thing you would think in visualizing echolocation. We were inspired by a theory from the biologist Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he's proposing that it's possible that animals that are using echolocation are using color as a way to tag different textures depending on how sound reflects on the surface of the objects. So he says probably a bat looks different at a moth that is a furry, has a furry texture than to a beetle that is shiny and flat shell exoskeleton. So we would like to develop this in a more scientific way, because I was just thinking about textures and color and trying to go together with these two factors to give color, but would be nice to go deeper in this field. And the colors itself, the palette of colors was inspired in Huichol indigents that also live in the region of Mexico, more in the south, and they do beautiful artworks using these very bright colors that go very well in contrast with this dark background. And now about the scientific model, Juan Felipe is going to tell us a little bit about.
Sure. So here we, in this experience, we wanted to create a little bit of or it is a scientific model, a scientific representation of what it could be to experience the world as bats. And everything you're seeing is so we try to keep everything in scale and according to the real physics of the world and etc. For example, the calls that you're hearing, so when I click and produce them, they're usually in ultrasound, but these are actually the calls that these bats produce. And we we tweak them in a way so that we can, so that they're audible to us. But also the wing movements of bats. We have other bats flying around here. Let me check. Yeah, so they also, I mean, this model was done in help with leading scientists that work on wing morphology of the bats. So we try to stay as close as possible. And well, we've talked so much of this so far, but I think now it's time to go back to the title. So bat experience, pollination through sound. And so let's give you an example of what these bats do during the day. So here, if you listen closely, I hear the echoes of things, but sometimes I hear different echoes. If you hear this echo is a little bit different, and this is a flower calling to us. As you can see here, I'm slowly approaching it, and the echo gets louder. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pollinate one of these flowers. Why not? I'm hungry after all. And here I can extend my tongue, and this really feels like as if it were my own tongue. And yeah, I'm feeding here on nectar and pollen, and getting satiated. I have here a fellow bat also feeding here. And yeah, these bats travel around doing this and feeding on this. Martin, what else do you want to tell us about it?
So there are 7 different species of plants in this virtual environment that are plants that in the real life this bat is pollinating, mostly 3 different species of agaves, and this one is agave americana. Then yes, other 4 species of other cactus. And we also designed specifically the flowers to be pollinated by the bats. And yeah, so it's a project that aims to raise awareness about bats, and to also create empathy towards bats. And the project started before the pandemic, the COVID-19. And I mean, in general, bats have always had a bad reputation. You always think about blood and Dracula and scary things. Actually, there are just 4 species of bats that are drinking blood from 1,400 species. And in this case, we wanted to show another face of bats. And after the COVID-19, of course, this became more important because there were more people killing bats in a preventive way all around the world. So we would like to show more this project in communities where bats are in danger, and in general, to create awareness. As a collaboration in art and science, was very interesting that we were none of us had more power or more kind of yes, in the making of this project. We were both directing the project with a developer and a 3D modeler, and it was very interesting to do this work together, and sometimes maybe Juan Felipe talking about the artistic experience part of the project, and I was also talking a lot about the scientific part, and somehow the things just blurred, and it doesn't matter who is the scientist and the artist in this moment of creativity. And I would think this was like one of the best moments. Yes, I don't know, Sefo, if you want to say another thing.
Come to the end, because Maite joined us, and so we are have to reschedule a bit. Thank you very much for this very interesting experience being a bat. And are there any questions? Maybe see us later in the back of the room.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
I think one is still in the augmented reality. No, it's back.
Many thanks for the opportunity to present this here.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, and good luck with new space for the web. But now we have Caroline Algae. She's an art curator and PhD researcher in gender studies in Linköping University in Sweden. And she's talking about tracing environmental imaginaries in contemporary art. Yeah, the board is yours, Caroline.
Thank you so much. I will try to share a screen first. Now you see a bit of everything, I think. Oh, sorry. So can you see it well now?
Yeah.
Is it okay, the view?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I have chosen a format of the presentation that I would say is a little bit between a paper and a performative reading. And this, of course, presents one of the myriad of approaches when it comes to environmental arts. And here I try to imagine the world through algae. And since I'm also interested in storytelling and poetry, it will also involve some of these, and perhaps at the very end some singing. We'll see about that. I would like us first of all to imagine that we are situated at the seaside, and from here I will take you on a brief curatorial journey where a series of artworks will tell stories of aquatic and terrestrial spaces. In a movement between land and water, across human and more than human worlds, these artistic imaginaries will guide us through past and future landscapes. But first, since it's Friday afternoon, let's try to take a deeper breath together to settle in. Following writer and biologist Rachel Carson, it was here at the edge of the sea that the drama of life played its first scene on Earth. The underwater forest of blue-green algae emerged from its dark tracings, transforming Earth into a breathable planet. Today, situated here at the shoreline, algae still provide the blue planet with most of its oxygen, so we can continue to breathe at least a while longer. I wonder, have you sometimes dreamt of being able to breathe underwater? I mean, without technological devices, such as a diving suit or a snorkel? Like the shape-shifting creatures from outer space that lands in water outside Lagos in Near Okorafor's science fiction novel Lagoon, or the sheriffs of Shora depicted in Jon Slonczewski's A Door into Ocean. And here, Shora, the ocean moon, is a watery world, and the sheriffs who lives there are a nation of bold women who share. That is, they have a spiritual and linguistic union with each other and all other beings. Treating all equally, they practice non-violence and embrace non-hierarchical perspectives at the edge of the sea, because we are what you see. We share all things. Boldness accentuated her long oval face. Or if I swim in the sea, does the sea swim in me? Now, I will bring with me the world building of Okorafor and Slonczewski to trace how humans, from the perspective of contemporary art, can learn a practice of care, curiosity, and non-violence when thinking with the ocean, the shoreline, and more specifically, low trophic creatures such as algae. As a way to connect with the category of visual arts and its potential to formulate oceanic and algal imaginaries, I turn to Donna Haraway's neologism of the Cthulhu, as well as to Catherine Joseph and Jennifer Gabriel's concept of the environmental imagination. For Haraway, the Cthulhu constitutes a time place for learning to stay with the trouble of living and dying in responsibility on a damaged Earth. Because unlike the dominant dramas of the Anthropocene discourse, the Thulucene is made up of ongoing multi-species stories and practices of becoming with in times that remain at stake. We human beings are not the only important actors. So according to Haraway, in the Thulucene, there is no good god or advanced technology that will come to the rescue. Instead, Haraway suggests that we turn to the present and to science fiction, and through this identify the world as a kind of a natural cultural assemblage to become with each other in surprising and tentacular relays. And at least for me, this tentacular thinking brings me directly down under the water, and I do start to imagine. In the article, Climate Change and the Imagination, Yusuf and Gabriel describe the imagination as a way of seeing, sensing, thinking, and dreaming the formation of knowledge, which creates conditions for material interventions in and political sensibilities of the world. And as such, they are proposing the imagination as a site of interplay between material and perceptual worlds. So as such, the environmental imagination aligns well with Haraway's Thulucene. And from this position of what I call the Thulucene types of environmental imaginaries as a time place for an embodied and multi-species storytelling, I will now briefly speak about my own fieldwork, but also artworks where artists engage with algae, where the in-field research and situated practices gets articulated through installation, performance, film, and site-specific work. And here we all share a bodily experience of algal life that goes beyond the very much single-sided way of seeing the sea at a vertical eye level. Instead, we are trying to challenge the stereotypes of the sea that from an art historical perspective has been amplified by a romanticized and anthropocentric view on nature with these paintings by Marcus Larson and William Turner as examples, depicting storms and shipwrecks and battles at the very surface of the water and not considering all the rich and magnificent life going on beneath. Because for me, the element of water allows for a kind of merger with non-human others that is soothing rather than frightening. In August this year, I was at Kristineberg Marine Biological Research Station at the Swedish West Coast to do fieldwork. And I wanted to spend time in the underwater forest and learn from algae, thinking from the perspective of oceanic humanities in the feminist registers. I also felt the need to not only learn from human biologists, but also non-human life forms such as waters, cliffs, seagrass, seaweed, oysters, mussels, and many other amazing creatures. So I wanted to be embodied, embedded, and embraced. And I really was, especially at the rocky shoreline of Jäven, because here I encountered the oarweed that you can see on this picture. And yeah, when being there, I felt very much like the winged creature Medusa from Greek mythology, with a hair made of living algae instead of snakes, being within the water and being really, truly present. And when my fingers reached these algal fingers, it became very much like this situated natural cultural meeting between material and perceptual worlds. And while being here, I came to think about this Karambarad quote that has stayed with me. When two hands touch, there is a sensuality of the flesh, an exchange of warmth, a feeling of pressure, of presence, a proximity of otherness that brings the other nearly as close as oneself, where the hand was the hand of the algae, basically. Now, I would like to think with the green algae, Ulva intestinalis, also known as gutweed or grass kelp. It is a softly lumpy and tubular green algae that is common in small bodies of water by the sea. And with the power of imagination, visual artist Ingela Irman weave together personal experiences of being a human in a human's body with getting to know other life forms, such as gutweed. Making in-field research at the seaside of the Baltic Sea, Irman embodies a situated natural cultural practice, sensing the long rhythms of earth and sea, reminiscent of how Rachel Carson in The Edge of the Sea is writing. Like the sea itself, the shore fascinates us who return to it, the place of our dim ancestral beginnings. In the current rhythms of tide and surf, and in the varied life of tide lines, there is the obvious attraction of movement and change and beauty. There is also, I am convinced, a deeper fascination born of inner meaning and significance. Irma's work, A Great Seaweed Day, departs from the artist's stomach that she sees as a both tender and sore point where flows of energy and emotions converge. Because inside the stomach, there are intestines that links the human body to bodies of water where the ulva intestinalis grows. And this gut weed accompanies Irma from the seaside to her studio, where she starts a craft and translation process, where the algae will go from micro to macro with the help of a whole range of simple and fine materials. I also wanted to bring forward 3 artistic visualizations of the brown algae Chordaphyllum, that is also called sea lace, mermaid's fishing line, or dead man's rope. And when I have been swimming through a Chordaphyllum forest, it feels very much as you are surrounded by long ropes or snares. So these names are actually very speaking for the experience as such. And the sea lace portrayed here comes from British waters. And first we see a newspaper that is a work by Ingela Irman called Seaweedsbladet. And here the artist connects the word seaweed with the place Seaweed in Malmö, Sweden, where the artist lived at the time. The algae on the front page of this magazine, Seaweedsbladet, connects Irman with 2 female pioneers. First of all, that of Margaret Gatty, who in the 19th century recovered in Hastings after 7 tiring pregnancies. And through spending time at the seaside, Gatty started a lifelong journey, getting to know all this fascinating life inhabiting the place. And the algae she collected and dried in an album called British Seaweeds. And here in the middle, you can see Gatty's original portrait of the Chordaphyllum. Margaret Gatty, she often also ended her diary notes with the words in capital letters, A Great Seaweed Day, that also gave name to Ingela Irman's work. To the right, you see another visualization of the Chordaphyllum made by Anne Atkins around 1853. And she was a pioneer in photography and worked with cyanotopy as one of the earliest photographic techniques. It is cameraless photography that gets its color from a chemical process that involves iron ions. And by placing wet algae collected during long beach walks directly on light-sensitive paper, Atkins created imprints of algae against a blue background. And blue is also the characteristic color of cyanotopy, often also called blueprint, that in a visual sense symbolically returns the Chordaphyllum to its watery belongings. And the algal immersions and bodily experience portrayed here makes me think about Astrid Anemani's, who has argued that water extends embodiment in time, body to body to body. Water in this sense is facilitative and directed towards the becoming of other bodies. I think I will jump these images since there is not enough time. But I recently read an interview with the artists Marilyn Diekman and Torelin Johannesen that started with a very nice quote by Rachel Carson from The Sea Around Us. And it goes like this: "The ocean is the beginning of all life. In time, some creatures learned to live on land, and a few, like the whale and the seal, found their way back to the sea. Eventually, too, the human also found their way back to the sea, not to return to it physically, but to re-enter it mentally and imaginatively." With the quote, Carson brings forward the importance of the imaginary, even though I would argue that many, for example, contemporary artists also return to the sea today also physically. And these overlapping practices of physically being in water and at the seaside, and also the objective of enliven Tulsin types of environmental imaginaries, goes again in this film installation, Reclaiming Vision by Marilyn Diekman and Toril Johannesen. Because as in the work of Ingela Irman, Diekman and Johannesen look at what's going on beneath the surface. starting from the wish to be lifting up the water, that is visuals on a micro scale, and also to bring a narrative on macro scale. And the film features algae sampled from the seaside of Oslo, but also algae cultivated at the University of Oslo. And in this way, they are revealing various processes that are normally hidden to the naked human eye. In fact, they also wanted to see whether it was possible to feel empathy or closer to something that for most humans are normally out of reach, both visually and emotionally. And I really had wanted to bring forward more artworks that engage and think with algae, but thinking through these artworks and these perspectives, yeah, I have tried to reclaim vision and also acknowledge the importance of macroalgae on planet Earth as a habitat, oxygen generator, food source, and also making clear that we all come from algae and that we probably also would die without algae. Because for me, algae is this dissolving space of union between human and non-human worlds, and very much a site for tools in types of environmental imaginaries that opens for multi-species storytelling and feelings of embodiment and immersions. So situated here, I sense the aesthetic, scientific, social, and imaginary dimensions of the shoreline. And from here, hopefully, humans can learn new ways of appreciating and caring for the ocean, and also finding new ways for reimagine the world. I will just finish with, do I have 2 minutes or not? No, then I will finish now.
Thank you so much, Carol. Did you have any artists who made work about the toxic algae?
Yes, there are a few artists as well that have made work by, you know, yeah, the toxic algae as well. And
getting more and more problem on beaches.
Yeah, exactly, that are blowing up on the beach side. That is, like, of course, very separate from the macro algae storytelling.
Okay, so there's a question from Mart. Oh no, that's it. And I was wondering why you said environmental traces and not nature traces. Because I mean, algae are nature.
I try to think from like a natural cultural positioning, but I didn't understand the question really.
Because I said you're looking for environmental traces in contemporary art, and it's mostly about algae. So I was wondering why you're using the word environmental and not natural traces of nature.
Yeah, I think that
environmental is always a human in the middle and the surrounding. Different.
Yeah, yeah, that could also be another perspective to think of it from that perspective. Yeah.
So any question from the audience here? So thank you so much for showing your project, and yeah, maybe see you later in the breakout room. And now I'm welcoming Maite Caravil, a Spanish artist and new media. She studied in Madrid and Frankfurt, and her artwork was displayed largely worldwide. And she's talking about Vextre, a project started in Extremadura in 2021. And yeah, welcome, Maite.
Hello, I'm going to share my screen now.
Yeah, I'm glad that you could join.
Yes, yes, it was I mean, just a confusion with the times, the different times.
Yeah. Okay.
So, can you see my screen? Did you see? Okay. Then, I mean, I'm just going to start. So, My name is Maite Cajaraville. I am an artist. I'm a curator. Since 10 years, I am working here at the Pixel Festival too. I am between Spain and Norway. Just before I start to talk about the project that brings me here, I would like to say that this year is the 20th anniversary of the Pixel Festival. So we are preparing like a very nice program, and you are all invited and welcome to Bergen in November. So more than that, well, Vextre. I'm going to talk about this project. Vextre is an augmented reality model and a physical sculpture that talks about the rural territory, specifically about Extremadura. That is a rural area where I was born. And just to make a little bit of context, Extremadura is a rural area based in agriculture. It has a very big extension compared to the other regions in Spain. There is an urgent problem of depopulation. The rate of depopulation is very high. And historically, the region has been very bad treated. Economical and political powers, they have always been very extractive. I mean, the area has been for centuries actually marked by extractivism, what we can call now the internal colonialism. It happens that this somehow, this kind of extractivism has been living in the population a sense of not believing, I mean, of being very skeptical about everything, and being very much not in power of their own future. Like everything was coming from abroad, or decisions are always imposed, and then well, this makes the area, the population of the area, like in general, like a kind of very anti everything, no, kind of depressed also about the future. This extractivism now, for example, has now reaching like new levels because unfortunately they found lithium. We have these big extensions of photovoltaic plants. We also have hosting, unfortunately, quite big farms, like extensive farms. So this kind of extractivism is again now getting the population. The population since some time has been, since of course after Franco, we can say, the population has been, is now much more educated, and there are a lot of collectives like working through the perspective of the climate change and to preserve the environment. But and this actually fits very well to the messages that we are getting from the European community about the Green Deal and all this. But then there is a total break there, no? That it's like this splintered reality that is part is like we are a green area, very green area, because this rural zone. But on the other side, now with all these extractivists, many of these very nice areas, they are going to be totally destroyed. So the population now is like threatened. I mean, they feel like to be threatening, no? Because it's like what to do, no? What to do is like to be solidary with Europe, or to be solidary with ourselves, no? As a rural area. On the other side, these ideas are always coming from abroad. So we have, as a local population, the local population has very strongly a feeling of this, the dichotomy of the rural and the urban. I mean, the people that is living there has a totally different, all these extractivist ideas are coming from abroad. So in 2019, there is this manifesto from the rural futurism that Beatriz Ferrara and Leandro Pisano, they were stating that we really have to rethink about this rurality, about what the rurality means. Because this idea of the population, the depopulation living, this is happening in all Europe. It's not only in Extremadura. Well, I will say in the world, but if we now listen a little bit to the European community, this depopulation from the rural areas is a big problem. So we have to stop thinking or to rethink the rurality as an authentic, utopic, anachronistic, provincial, traditional, and stable. Getting a little bit deeper on this kind of thing, if we think about the contrary, like authentic, if you are not authentic, like we are in the rural, then you are a fake. So we want to be authentic. We want to be utopic because the contrary will be dystopic. So it's like actually all these, as the good things that we have, but the bad things that we have is all at the end making us to be stuck. So there is no escape, no way to escape. No. On the other side, also the manifesto is noting that the rurality today cannot be seen as a geographical space, but more like a place where we have to, a playground from politics. Because right now, for example, in Europe, it's very clear, no? Like all these from the mining, the renewable energies. So it's all like great ideas. We have to be sustainable. We have to be like we have to be autonomous. But the reality is like all this autonomy as a big area is on the back of the rural areas. So this has to be thought in a way. No? And then in general, what I see, what I can feel is like the rural people is in a place, in a street without a way out. No. So Backstrace, this project is a little bit about that, or is talking about that. In 2017, I developed a 3D model that is a sculpture that visualizes the economical and socio-economical data from Extremadura by municipalities. So what you see there is not the topography, it's not the real topography of Extremadura, but the data of Extremadura. This sculpture integrates a lot of data, a lot of different data. The population, economical growth, gender inequalities, trade, international, local trader. So it's integrating a lot of data. It's like if you see this and you know how to interpret it, you actually can have in a glance what Extremadura right now is. For example, here you can see a little bit more how it is. You can see that in the growings, in this picture we can see better. The economical growings of each town is reflected in the growing in the volume, no? When the volume is growing. If it's open up, if one of the cities open up, this means that people is coming in. But if it's closing, like we can see in the one before, that there are many areas where these kind of volcanoes are appearing. This is because the population is leaving. So just in a glance, we can see, for example, which areas are better and which areas are more depressed, which areas are growing. So the idea was working with data, making it clay. So it's like getting all this transformation also, how the data is transforming. The idea was to confront the people, the citizens that are living there with their own reality, trying to avoid, because we are also ourselves, we have a lot of prejudice from of ourselves. So the idea was to confront with the data, with the real data, the data that is published, of course, and then that the people was able to post their own narratives about it. Why my town is worse than the town that is next to me, or why this area is getting better, what do they have that we don't have. So all this thinking, not to pretend like new narratives about that. The data you can see here, I mean, it was a lot of data that was data mining almost, working with published statistics, of course. And then it was a moment that when we did this structure, I thought that it would be nice if the people could actually study the data with more time. So I decided to put it online, and this is now online. All the models are online, and then here you can actually make like much. To get it closer to the model, no? Then is after I made it in the website. The idea was like, okay, but why not to make it in augmented reality? So actually, the people is not only can see it in their screens, in their computer, they can also use it and put it everywhere in their surroundings, in their environment. They can use it everywhere and make a picture in everywhere. So then this was this other jump or other step of the project, that we were using QR markers, in Instagram filters, the websites, of course. And then the people started to make and to use this entity, this augmented reality of the socioeconomical data of Extremadura. They started to use it and put it in different places. So then somehow the project was a nice thing, like how the people could start to experiment from that narratives that they were starting to do it, to I don't know, like to make a new identity, a new rural identity. Like Bextre all of a sudden became a kind of tool for the people to use that has like new implications somehow. That they could, it's a technological thing, it's not, it's economical, it's data, so somehow it was associating Extremadura with other values further than these super traditional or static values, no? Here there are some pictures that people has been sharing on Instagram, in Facebook, everywhere. So this became the digital community of Bextre. Then after some point, the first project was done from 2014 to 2017 with that period of data. In 2021, the Spanish minister, the cultural Spanish minister, asked me to make a new model, but from a new data set, a new period. Also, we have to understand that the first period was a big crisis in Spain and in Europe, and the second period was the pandemic. So in both periods, there has been like quite a lot of movements in this rural area. So then they asked me to do it from another period, and this was for the first time when the model with this project proved the interoperability. So doing the same protocol, let's say, we could do a totally new model. At the same time, more or less, the Centro Cultural Eugenio de Almeida from Portugal, they asked also if we could do a new instance of the project, but based in the Alentejo, that is another rural area, but from Portugal. So in last year, this was basically the work we were doing.
Out of time, Maite. So
Okay. No, okay, I'm sorry, I don't see your hand. But anyway, this has proved this interoperability, and now we have these three models. What we would like to do, and what we would like to work on, is like this is a project that can be done in many other rural areas. New findings are happening because of the data, different data set we are compiling. And just to finish, to say that this is based also in various in Creative Commons. We have put all the data set open to the public to work with them in case they want or they want to investigate more. Many activities have been done regarding all these projects to get this new identity or to help the rural people to understand better where we all are. That we are welcoming the new sisters in Europe. So if somebody wants to do a new sister, it's more than welcome. And the last thing I wanted to say, just showing this quickly, how has been shown in different museums and other places.
See, you have still a lot of things to show.
Yeah, I have a lot, but the last thing I want to say is like I was presenting this project at the Interference in Italy in a festival that is also about the rural environment, and there was like the first seed for this electronic art rural network that is just starting, and I would like to, if there is somebody listening this that is touched by this rural problematic.
Just we're running out of time, Maite.
Okay, but that's please look for us as electronic art for rural network that we are going to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was great. And it's very interesting how you visualize data in ceramic or in 3D models. Some of them reminded me of limestones, and I was wondering if you have this kind of limestones with holes in Extremadura.
If we have the data, you mean?
No, the kind of limes. Some of the sculptures reminded me of limestones.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you have this kind of limestones with holes in Extremadura.
Yeah, well, we don't have these limestones, but when the project was, we were thinking very much with the Rosetta, something like the Rosetta stone that was found a long time ago. Yeah, something like I always think like if somebody in the future will get this, I don't know, in the sand or something, just try somewhere this sculpture, they will at the end they will understand how the region is right now. So this is I like to think about that, no, like a sculpture or like an oracle, a sculpture of the future. This is what the curator was naming.
Thank you. Is there a question from the audience or from the chat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maite, I understood from when you were talking that the local politicians were really interested in your project and even supportive to you. Now, could you expand a little bit on that, how the collaboration with politicians was, or how they responded to your project at first?
With the supporters, you mean? Well, actually very good. But the project started in 2017, so it has been very slow, step by step, being building up. You know, like first I got a small grant to make some research, then I did the first sculpture, then another little bit of money, then I could start investigating the augmented reality. So it has been made by patches, I will say, no? But yes, at the end, the people is in Spain and in Extremadura, people is very engaged. Also the cultural entities, because they see this problem. This problem is not, I mean, it's not hidden. It's like everyone knows that the rural, we are in a very, how to say, in the sword, you know, like in a very bad momentum, because it's extractivist, colonial, internal colonialism. So they have been supporting very much, like doing a lot of workshops, like trying to get a lot of people. I have done workshops in many, for kids, for engineers, for artists, for mediators. So it's like popular universities in every small towns for I don't know, 6,600 people. I went there to make a talk. So everyone is actually liking the project very much, no? Even if they sometimes don't understand. But it's okay. I mean, I think it's a way of starting anyway.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maite. I would like to invite all participants to last comments and questions. And I have a question to Juan and Martin about the project of the bats. I was wondering if you changed your sense of hearing and seeing after doing this project or while doing this project.
When you hear the first time bats, when you hear them flying around and making the noise they used to communicate in between, then you never stop hearing this sound. It's a very high peak sound, and then you recognize it wherever you are. And actually, they are everywhere. They are in many places. I live here in Vienna, and I hear them from my flat. So I think yes. I mean somehow the sensitivity of the hearing is different. And you, Juan, what do you think?
I like to play a lot in the project, and it's really interesting when you, I mean, luckily I have vision, but we also, I mean, there are other human beings that only use the acoustic sense for navigation, people that are blind, and sometimes they use it also actively, like they have devices that produce sounds, and then they can recognize the environment. And but while working in this project and during the experience, it's really nice to hear where the plants are, and then I know it's on the right, then I try to turn, and I don't know this but this is also like my interest in what I have researched in bat communication. So yeah, that's quite interesting.
Actually, one of the main objects we want with the experience is also that you could close your eyes and just use navigating just with the sound, because it has like a 360-degree sound. So you could eventually go around flying and activating your echolocation, and then find flowers to pollinate by hearing around. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is also part of it. And of course, maybe I mentioned to say that we are interested in this, like embody other beings to have these non-human perspectives and trying to understand things from other perspectives in this very kind of immersive way. Yeah.
Thank you. And a question to all, I mean, it was about ECOSOPHIES, and we had a lot about nature culture and art as a vehicle or a catalyzer. What do you think we have to, it's good to continue that way, that we are putting more political or nature things into our art and exhibitions? Does it really have an impact?
Sorry, are you talking to me?
I'm wondering, what is your, I mean, everybody from us is dealing with art, nature, or environment, and how, let's formulate different. How important is it for you, for your artwork, for your exhibitions?
For me, it's very important to keep on going with this project in different ways. The project has many different itself, giving a lot of different steps, further steps. Yeah, I mean, without support, it's difficult always to bring the project. When it's integrating a community, for example, it's very difficult because you need to be all the time activating, and activating it needs energy, a lot of energy. But yeah, I mean, it's the only way to make a point, I think, no? To keep on exhibiting and spreading the word somehow.
And for you, Ricardo, Olivia, Caroline?
Yeah, well, of course, it's important to keep on going, as Maite said. And I'm right now sitting at Bonniers Konsthall in Stockholm, and we have an exhibition with the artistic duo cooking sections, for example, titled Undamming Rivers. And it is always very curious to talk to visitors and also to, talk to the gallery hosts and hear what impressions the exhibition, the visitors of the exhibitions actually have, and to also kind of learn from that and to see what impact an exhibition has got from that perspective. And since this is an exhibition that also deals with change in a way, and the change of behavior, it's always, hard to actually grasp what the actual impact is and what the visitors are bringing with them from the actual exhibition. But of course, it's really important to keep on going, but also to listen and to take in and to collaborate in various ways.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo, Olivia, because we're running out of time.
Yes, just I think that I didn't mention that we are going to be doing in about a month, a little bit more, a small version of the Balance and Balance conference. This will be done with energy from several countries, including Brazil and Chile. This will be a micro version of it, not that big, because we are joining 2 other conferences, but we are always doing actions at different levels. And the idea is not, the goal is not the conference, as I said before. The goal is to make a change and to contribute some way. So Balance and Balance, if you want, is an excuse to do what I feel we need to do, basically.
And well, I cannot provide you with a good last word because our project is not, it's not really straightforward. The relation between nature, culture, and the project itself, it's rather a metaphorical thing, since we try to set up an ecosystem in a virtual way. But that's maybe another thing to point out, that these differentiation between the two might be obsolete, and we might need to think of that differentiation or reconsider it, or think about it in another way or so.
Well, no, Martin, just a last remark.
I mean, for me, it's the only thing that inspires me. In general, I work with biology, not always with technology, but always with nature and biology. And I think right now, in general, the art has found like a place that is kind of taking from science. As science was the like some years ago, 10 years ago, or maybe more talking about ecology and then art started to take this flag and it has become important for the art, like a renewal, I would say, for the art to have this on hand. And I think it's very important that art deals with this. And yes, I think it makes total sense. And I think I think it makes total sense.
Well,
and also spreading the word like outside. So I don't know. I have the perspective of a scientist and have been rather in academia, and my impression is that these findings and a lot of the information regarding global change mostly stays within academia. And yeah, a vehicle to put it out is definitely art, but I think we have to be very creative about future, about many other possibilities to really bring it to common things for people, or I don't know. Previously, I think it was Ricardo who was mentioning that talking about climate change is a problem for the youth because it's about the end of the world and nobody is paying attention to that. Well, yes, if we don't do anything really innovative, then we really need to, I mean, it's going to happen. So I think bringing it outside the, let's say, comfort circle is, I think, a challenge for us all to bring all of these topics. And yeah, this is a first step, but always try to push it where, yeah, to new boundaries would be my thought on this.
Thank you very much for your contribution, and it was a pleasure having you here in Riga virtually. And for all the others, you can find more information about the participants, about the lectures and the biographies on the website, and always also some links provided. And yeah, thank you for joining us, and wish you a nice day or evening, and looking forward to seeing you somewhere else soon. Bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, has been a
Thank you
pleasure.
all.